Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by RJ Sajinth Harikumar, a dynamic talent in the media landscape. At such a young age, you've achieved so much. You're a radio jock at Delse 90.8 FM, a digital content creator, assistant producer at True Stories Live, a voice actor, passionate singer, and also practices culinary. Thank you for your time here.
Thank you so much, Arsha, for the wonderful introduction.
So I'm gonna get
Yes,
straight
really
to
happy
it.
to be here. Yeah.
What inspired you to pursue radio?
So it's a long story, but let me give you a short insight of it. See, like most Malayali kids growing up in the UAE, so radio is one of the most, the first mainstream media that we have access to. Because being having such a big, driving culture in the UAE, everyone listens to radio, and especially in Malayalam, and especially in the UAE, radio is huge. So I've been growing up listening to radio and seeing the people on radio act in movies, on TV. So radio is something that got stuck in my head from a very long time. And my family, we've been, very attached to music, movies, and all these things. So growing up, radio was a big part of my life as a listener. And when I grew up, I had interest in both public speaking, and I'm also a singer, so I had interest in music. So the thought of going to radio came from an idea where, and I was thinking, what would be a job where I can do two things that I love the most at the same time? One is listening to music and also talking to people on air, and that's how I ended up in radio.
That's great. And you are like a representative of Gen Z in the radio community in UAE. And
അങ്ങനെയൊന്നുമില്ല, അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ തന്നെയാണ് ഞാൻ. Yeah, that's how I want to be. You know,
mhm,
I want to flag bear the ideas of Gen Z in mainstream radio because the Gen Z representation in the entire radio industry is very very less, especially
yeah,
in the UAE. It's almost less than 1%. Let's say. Yeah.
that's true. And as you said, you do singing and you have so many talents. How do you manage all of this?
The thing is, I don't know who said this, but we say in Malayalam, like, if you want to do something, like everybody has 24 hours in a day.
Mhm.
But if you really, really want to do something, or if you really, really want to meet someone, or if you really, really want to do something else, if you really want to do it, you can find time for it. So it's
You
not
can
like you don't have
prioritize
time.
it.
Yeah, just prioritize the stuff. And of course, yeah, sometimes it gets a bit tiring, but yeah, it just happens.
Sometimes it can be challenging, right?
Absolutely challenging because you have to manage your passion, then you have to manage your all these little hobbies that you do, and you have to manage your work.
Is that
So finding the right balance
the most
is
challenging bit?
that's not the most challenging part. The most challenging part is stepping outside your comfort zone, because yeah, when you do something, especially when you enter the media industry from outside, you think this is how it works, or this is how the way it is, and sometimes you have to do things that you've never done before, and you can't say no as well. So somewhere in between.
What is one thing that you're very proud of, that one challenge you overcome?
One challenge that I overcome. That's a pretty tough question, but എന്തായിരിക്കും?
Any comfort zone that you stepped out, but it was really hard for you to do it, but you did it?
Saying no. So I know that sounds very off from the topic that we're talking about, but there are things which എന്താ പറയാ മണ്ടത്തരം കാണിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ലല്ലോ ചില സമയത്ത്. There are things that you have to be very skeptical about and practical about. There are some things that you have to do, and there are some things which you can say no. So at times when you have to say no, you have to say no. Because I've gotten a lot of trouble for not being able to say that. Because there is something that you really can't do. There is one thing called stepping outside the comfort zone, and then there is something called doing dumb stuff. Okay, like
There's a
that's
fine line between.
yeah. There's a fine line between that, and there are a lot of people who will convince you into doing the other thing. So you have to say no at places where you have to. Yeah. So which is a very very tough thing for me, because let's say I can admit it. Like I'm a people pleaser sometimes. Because growing up, I've always been the good kid on the public face. So ശരിക്കും അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ തന്നെയാണ്. But yeah, but then there are times where you can't say no. Everyone comes and asks you, especially if someone says you in like a very polite manner, or like in a very positive approach. It's very hard to say no. You're like, okay, let me do it. Even if you're already burdened with work, like you take over the thing and you say that okay, let's do it. But sometimes it gets tough, and when it gets tough, you have to be open and you have to say no, I can't do it. So
And
yeah.
sometimes it's like you're getting one more opportunity, which is good. So,
But it depends upon,
mm-hmm.
you have to look, you have to do a SWOT analysis. So what do you really get from it? Are you really getting that kind of an opportunity, or are they really? So the thing is, when someone offers you an opportunity on the other end of the spectrum, they're also receiving something. So there's no free lunch.
Sometimes
So
they're
what are they
meeting you.
getting, and what are you getting, and what are you compromising for doing this?
Yeah.
And again, prioritizing is the main thing. That's what I've learned from.
Who are
Yeah.
your biggest, like, who's had the biggest influence on your work?
In radio,
Yeah.
there
Maybe
are a
your
lot of people.
mentor. Yeah.
There are a lot of people, a lot of people. So mentors, yes. So there is one thing that I've come across, which is there are people 5 to 6 years ago I've admired on television, I've admired on radio, or I've admired on social media, and there are moments that I've worked right next to them, or I'm working with them at this point. So I don't really want to take names out there, but there are a lot of people that I've looked up to as inspiration. Like when I was back in school, and when I had the thought of getting into doing this thing, when I was like building the passion, and right now, alhamdulillah, I'm having the opportunity to work with them. So I can't name out a single person, but there are a lot of people who've been an inspiration for me behind this, and fortunately I have got the opportunity to work with some of them right now, and inshallah there are a lot more people that I want to work with in the future.
So, do you hope to create an impact on the community or on the people listening to you?
Yes, absolutely. So what I believe is, especially in a field like media, like I'm not belittling any other field or anything, regardless of your role that you work in. One thing that I've learned from my seniors is there's a big social responsibility that you carry. Because unlike the other places, people always listen to you. In the sense, you can't keep saying whatever you want outside. So having being on mainstream media doesn't mean that you have the license to say whatever you want outside. But so using that responsibility wisely to take the messages out to the community. If I want to share like an incident that happened. So my first interview on air was with. The thing is, I've been looking out for people to interview, and being like a young presenter, it's quite tough to get someone to be on your show without prior experience. So the first person that I had the opportunity to get on air was a girl. So she was a person of determination. So she was autistic. At the same time, she has world records. She received a medal from the president of India. If you look at her profile, it's huge. But the thing is, she didn't really have. She came to UAE for a show, and her team, the people who were taking care of her, they were actually looking out for opportunities to give her exposure on mainstream media. And I randomly came across her profile, and I thought, this is something that for me it might be just 30 minutes of my show, 30 minutes of my show on everyday basis. So I'm doing show like 6 days a week. This is just 30 minutes out of those 6 days. But for her, that's a lifetime memory. So that's what I thought. Some things that we do, which we consider very small, has a big impact on
Others.
on the other people. So that's what I thought. So what can I do with this? And that's how, before I take an interview, of course there are things that we do. Like there is commercial basis, and then there are things that we do for ourselves. So I prioritize that doing for myself a lot, and that's one thing that I've learned from my seniors in the industry.
It was a really nice story. Thank you for sharing it. Okay, so last question.
Yes, കഴിഞ്ഞോ ഇത്ര പെട്ടെന്ന്?
ഞാൻ ഒരു 10 മിനിറ്റ് വിചാരിച്ചുള്ളൂ.
Okay, okay, okay.
What
ചോദിച്ചു
advice
ചോദിച്ചു കുഴപ്പമില്ല. Yeah.
what advice would you like to give to people who want to pursue radio?
So I would say radio is very specific. Okay, even now, personally, I was in radio, but I've transitioned into digital media. So I work as an assistant producer for a digital media channel, which is a social media vertical of the radio. So radio, let's say, is a traditional media, but in this day and age, when we've got artificial intelligence, meta, and all these things, we can't really predict the future. So, for example, I've heard stories from my seniors when they would, back in the day, like let's say 15 years before, they're like, okay, so the radio is only going to be there for the next 10 years. So what's going to happen after that? So FM radio especially. So that's one question that they've been hearing for a long time. But if you look at now, radio is still going strong, especially in this country. It's one of the strongest mainstream medias out there, especially for advertising or whatever it is. So as strong radio it is, I've told you personally earlier before, people are transitioning. People are doing the transition from radio to digital. So as of now, it's digital media, which is social media and all these platforms. Even people who are on television are making the transition into blogging, influencing, and doing all these sort of stuff. So unlike before, if you want to be on media, you don't really have to be in like a television studio or like a radio station to be part of media. You have a phone in your hand, you have a good camera, you have the passion for talking, you have the passion for content creation, you're already in media. So radio is one among those many traditional media outlets out there. So if you really want to go for it, yes, you can take a traditional route and you can reach there. That's definitely there. But don't wait for the opportunity to land to get into content creation. Begin with content creation, do what you want to do, and the opportunities will hit your door. That's what I want to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time here, and I had a wonderful interview with you.
Thank you so much, Asha. This is my first time being interviewed.
Oh,
Because usually it's the other way around. So first time, I'm in the hot seat.
this is always the first time.
The questions were really good, really good. And one thing that I want to say about Asha is I've had the opportunity to interact with Asha even before. She's come to our studio as well. So she's a very talented person. She has a huge passion for media, and I hope and I pray that you really make it big in the industry very soon. And from on behalf of myself and my entire team, we're always with you. Feel free to reach out for anything that you want. And yeah,